As South Africa grapples with alternating stage 5 and 6 load shedding, Cabinet met to discuss proposals by the Electricity Minister, Dr. Ramokgopa, on reducing blackouts. The meeting is also said to have discussed short to medium-term measures to ensure energy security. For more on this, I'm joined now by Acting Government Spokesperson Michael Currin. Michael, good to have you, and thank you very much for coming on this evening.
Thabo, good evening. I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you loud and clear. Fantastic. Good to have you. So this is coming, of course, at the back of the ANC meeting, and we are led to believe that they approved a plan that would see the slowing down of the retiring of old coal-powered fire stations. Is the cabinet still divided or unsure around this particular process as far as slowing down the decommissioning of these old coal-powered stations?
Well, look, Thabo, I think the important thing for today is just to not run too far ahead. And I think why I was quite keen to speak with you when you requested and your viewers, just to give the perspective of where we are. The statement we issued today is just giving a sense to yourselves as the media, but also the public out there, that we certainly are very much alive to some of the problems that we face, that there has to be a very significant look at what could be short-term and immediate interventions, but nothing like division or anything of the sort. That's why we issued a statement, just to say that the Cabinet today took a proper report with a lot of detail. I think most of the content, the Minister Ramokgopa was very candid about just before Easter when he met with the media to share what he found on some of these visits. So obviously he's had an opportunity to process some of that now. There was no hard or fast decision today, other than what we indicated in the statement, that we will have a NECOM meeting imminently. You know, the President chairs the NECOM, and that content and that detail that we would like to get now in the next steps will emanate from a NECOM meeting. So I think to yourself and the viewers and to the South Africans out there, just to say that the whole tone of why we met today was reaffirming government's position that we really understand the hardship that load shedding causes. We understand its impact on our economy, and our energy action plan in its detailed form is taking some shape. We're seeing a lot of results already, but we really would need our NECOM to meet quite soon. The President said it should be very soon, and to actually look at what other measures we can do, because at the end of the day, Thabo, we have to understand that, like Minister Sputla was saying just a few weeks or so ago after his visits, that there's a very serious understanding developed now of some of the root causes for our generation capability problems, So I feel confident that we would hopefully, once that process of NECOM has been completed, be able to come back with some specific ideas and opportunities.
Yeah, but Michael, was the candidness to the point where it was clear, or cleared at least, with Cabinet on whether or not we did exceed stage 6 power cuts this past weekend? Because there are reports that we actually got to stage 8. Did the Electricity Minister really divulge to Cabinet what happened this past weekend?
No, we didn't go into that level of detail, but I think that we've spoken on that in this week, both Eskom and the Minister himself. The whole thing about load shedding and Thabo, which is a managed process, and that's why I always get quite perplexed when we keep referring to blackouts and load shedding in the same terminology. We have a managed process, and that managed process is there to ensure that demand and supply are in balance, and that the issues of blackout that gets mentioned is the worst case scenario that happens when there's no control or no anticipation over the grid. Load shedding is there to say, look, we can see the demand that's coming up and we are managing that. Now, I think yourself, Thabo, and the viewers would know that we have always been candid and upfront with the public about where we are. Regular updates. Stage 8 hasn't been reached yet by any formal management of the grid. As we've said, there was no explanation around that. And secondly, Eskom was also saying that, we've managed to pull ourselves back, sadly, to level 6. But it isn't that the demand and the supply got to the point where we didn't manage it properly. So I think for now, we're not at that stage yet. Obviously, the focus of our attention is to make sure that we have a much more reliable generation, and that we can then ensure that we can start lowering the stages. But the candor at the moment, Thabo, is about understanding the depth of the problem that we face, understanding that in any context, choices have to be made, Now, whether they extend to some of the issues you mentioned about, expanding the lifespan, I think I was part of that briefing, Thabo, when the Minister Sputla was outlining to the public. He was just giving scenarios of what would be feasible. I mean, if you look at some of the timelines on our energy action plan, some things are going to take quite a long time to come on speed. And with some of the problems we're having with plant at the moment, we don't want to be in a situation where we get to a very serious risk without having any short-term mitigation. There's only so much you can do with open gas turbines, and it's very costly to run those to offset, peak when you need to have high supply to meet a very high demand. And unfortunately, the thing that we have to emphasize is we are dealing with a fleet that is very aged and that is inclined to break down. And one of the achievements of the action plan in the last quarter, for example, has really been to ramp up how quickly we can get spare parts, how quickly we can ensure that the kinds of parts that are needed for the complexity of that machine can be procured. Because that was some of the problem we had in the recent years, that we were using the wrong parts because of various compliance measures, you see. Yeah. So I think the reason why I was quite open to share with you is that we don't want to get into speculation. I really want to appeal to the media and the public to say, look, let's not speculate about options as yet, because they have consequences, Right. If we say that we're going to do one thing, then another set of audiences say, oh, so now you're not going to be committed to renewals. Yes. We are a nation that's committed to reduce our carbon footprint. Yes. And the manner in which we do that in the time frames that are there, yeah. We will have to look at how we do that, But at the end of the day, you have to be aware that our government is very, very committed to ending this massive challenge that we are faced with and its severe impact on our society.
Interesting that you say that, and I suppose that's really the clarity that many of us would be seeking, that we have these climate commitment goals, we have this risk to our economy, and many are saying we need to be making decisions that possibly might see us losing the potential just energy transition investment of $8.5 billion US. Is there a real risk? Is there a real concern from cabinet that decisions we make might affect that?
Look, Thabo, I think that's going to get into some of the detail that I don't think was coming out of today's statement. The thing that we have to understand is South Africa is a nation that sees itself as a good global citizen. So anything we do and decide will be done within that context of a global citizen that we are. So we're not at the point yet, and the reason why I felt it important to share this is that, this energy sector is a very highly contested one. I mean, everybody knows it is. But what we're trying to say from our action plan and from our overall energy mix program as a country is that we're not a one-size-fits-all, and we're not going to deviate from a base load with a megawatts are generated by coal within a short period of time. But at the same time, we're going to look for ways in which we ensure that transition is just and that it doesn't leave our economy in a shambles. I mean, I don't think, Thabo, anybody would be averse to the assessment that, look, we really are in a very dire situation, and we need to make trade-offs in different areas of this overall plan, right? And still not deviate from long-term objectives, Right. But so I do hope that once we've had our NECOM, we'd be able to come back to yourselves and the viewers with a little bit more detail. I can assure you that the Electricity Minister also is building up a program of interaction with stakeholders and the media as well. Yeah. And we will definitely make sure that yourself and the newsroom viewers are first in the list of those that we give information to.
Fantastic. What you're saying, though, it sounds to me very close to what the Minister of Public Enterprises was saying in a colloquium that he was speaking at last week, Friday, where he's saying the new global reality arising from the war in Europe is seeing all sorts of deviation, for example, from the original pathways that many people were planning to follow as far as the transition is concerned, and therefore South Africa should also be allowed, in a sense, to maybe look at different ways while still pursuing the journey of decarbonization. Is that a sense that you think NECOM will want to be discussing around?
Yeah, you see, that's actually, Minister Gordhan has clearly given a very solid sense of the situation, because it's exactly the same paradigm as we had with COVID. And it's exactly the same paradigm as we faced with the sixth administration. In 2018, 2019, when President Ramokgopa took office, we had no way to forecast that the economic and other job creation plans that we'd cast for the next 5 years would come under these massive headwinds, and even in the later part of our administration, this war in Europe, which has had a knock-on everywhere. So I think, Thabo, the reality is that you make a decision based on the realities and the prevailing conditions of that time. And I think Minister Gordhan is quite correct then when he says that we'd have to look at the assessment that's on. But at the same time, what I just want to read, I really want to encourage because there's a lot of people out there who are analysts and experts and things. We have very high expertise within the administration of government. So I would always be available to assist for some of those colleagues to come and give a detailed technical explanation of the application and the management of our policy. Because this speculation just causes unnecessary tension and panic about what we aim to do as a country. So I think for today, Thabo, what we just want the South Africans to be aware of is that we have a plan. Our plan has to be flexible, like it was with COVID. We didn't just sit with the plan and not adapt it as circumstances changed. The Europeans, as you all correctly point out, have had to make certain adaptations. Now, whether those adaptations are long-term reversals of what they're committed to do, we can't say. It's circumstantial. But any good government, and I think this is the thing that I feel very confident to share, and I saw it at the investment conference last week. The leadership, particularly the speakers from Anglo American, I saw the chair was there, the CEO, and the comments that we're making is what they found comforting about this administration, this government, is that we're alive to the kinds of problems that need to be fixed. So if it means there needs to be trade-offs and that, the leadership and the public must know that they're in incapable hands. You wouldn't want to be in the hands of a leadership that says, look, you know what, there's a crisis here, but we'll just have to sit and watch and see what happens.
Yeah.
So I think that's the feeling we should be looking in the next 2 weeks towards, that firstly we have to try by all means as government, and we hope our ESCOM colleagues we know that they're working tirelessly to get these things back on grid. I think you've heard the colleagues from ESCOM. Secondly, we have to make sure that we do assess and deal with what Minister of Electricity found when he did his road shows, and what the best medium will be. And that's what the President and the Cabinet today agreed. We're not going to jump. We've got the report now. We've understood some of the dynamics. Let's ask the right platform. And the IMC that the President chairs for NECOM is the right place where we'll get to the details and make the decisions necessary.
Yeah. No, I understand you can't get much into those details, but can I push you just one more? The question around the ramping up of the emergency power is one other aspect, of course, that many people are concerned about, and immediately the conclusion that they jumped to is Cabinet will make a decision on the car power ships, and that's what would have come out today.
Oh, no, certainly not. Everybody knows that example, for example, is got a very legal and complicated policy process around it. So the thing that we need to perhaps share with yourself is that obviously we don't want to be in a situation where a deteriorating generation capacity or the oncoming of new generation doesn't meet the demand we have. Okay. Now that means that by simple mathematics, there's a difference between demand and supply potentially. So we have to look, and I don't know maybe we're going to have to look at more expertise, more ideas, because we have to try and meet that gap as best we can, because I don't think any South African feels confident that we could, while we move in the next 18 or so, 24 months, to a lot of new energy on the grid, which is very clear. I mean, we've had more than 1,500 in the last 3 months alone of that megawatts entering the grid, coming from that, that removal of the threshold for licensing, which NERSA has now got. I mean, we had 1,100 in the first month. In March alone, there's 1,300 megawatts coming on. So there are those things that are happening, but we can't be in that risk situation where we just say that, look, while we transition, we run the risk of having this profound damage that we see on the economy. So I think Thabo, that element requires quite a lot of legal and other policy issues, and the cabinet will apply itself to that and decide how best to do that. But it's not going to be an overnight solution. Some of those things, but so I think I do appreciate that there's a lot of interest and there's a lot of speculation. But the message I wanted to convey is, please have confidence that the leadership of our government and our country is really immersed in this, is looking at the best options, is ensuring that we do the best for our people, and above all, that we do keep our international flag as a nation that is a first among equals in the nation, the family of nations. We don't do wrong things in our country.
Michael, I appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on. That's Michael Currin, acting government spokesperson there, giving us feedback from that emergency or urgent cabinet meeting that was held with the Minister of Electricity.